of Formula One touches down at Shanghai's wonderful international circuit. It's the 16th round of the championship. It's the first Chinese Grand Prix with Martin Brundle and James Allen. Now then, James, Michael Schumacher, the tail end Charlie, starting from the pit lane. It's different.
You couldn't make it up, could you, Jim? Hello, everybody. Well, Schumacher was asked on Friday by a local Chinese journalist whether he races in the colour red because it's a lucky colour. Hasn't been very lucky for him this weekend. Software problem stopped him in practice on Friday, and yesterday he was all over the place in qualifying, spinning off in the first corner. He will start from the pit lane. I'm sure you'll see a shot of him very shortly. At the moment, we're looking at this magnificent £250 million Shanghai facility. The track in the shape of the Chinese character Shang. It means literally above or high, and viewed from above, this track is really something very special indeed. Drivers quite like it, but they're still learning about it, and I think during the course of the next hour and a half of this Grand Prix they'll be learning more and more. The track evolving all the time, and the wily drivers, the ones able to think on their feet, will perhaps be the ones who come out best. Well, the bicycle may still be the vehicle of choice for most Chinese people, but this weekend Formula One is opening a new frontier here in China, and it's very much the racing car that's king. Mark Webber sitting in a Jaguar there, which sadly will not be seen next year in Formula One. Ford announcing they're pulling that team out. It is for sale, and there is Michael Schumacher. No tyres on his car at the moment. They will, at the end of the parade lap, they will put fuel in, put tyres on and send him out into the race. He'll be on a completely different strategy from everybody else. And Martin, I would put money on him coming through to a podium at the very least today. A win, though, that would be something particularly special, given that an identical car right there is sitting on pole position with Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, we've often had a laugh, haven't we, in the last 2 or 3 years? People say, what on earth are they going to do to stop Schumacher winning? Well, parking him in the pits, give him no tyres for a little while and make him have to refuel before he starts the race might just be the solution every weekend. But it's going to be great to see the world champion making his way through the pack. There are a couple of good overtaking opportunities around this racetrack. We know that the Ferrari is massively fast in certain conditions, and Ross was explaining to me on the grid, if you fully understood that, the tyres go through 2 phases, which is exactly how the Michelins used to be, but it's become a Bridgestone characteristic here, and they can sometimes be 3 or 4 seconds a lap slow, you know, in those conditions. So Barrichello has to get down to the first corner first, manage his way through that phase of the tyre, and then we'll see how it unfolds at the first pit stops.
Michael Schumacher there, 20th place. As I say, he will start from the pit lane. That is his worst ever qualifying position in 208 Grand Prix, stretching back to 1991. So a little piece of history being made here in China on 2 fronts. The first ever Chinese Grand Prix, and Schumacher right at the very, very back. Watch out also, though, today for a battle, terrific battle for the final podium position, possibly better, between Kimi Raikkonen and Jenson Button. There's been absolutely nothing to choose between the two of them throughout practice and qualifying, just tenths and hundredths of a second. 2 different cars, McLaren for Raikkonen, BAR Honda for Jenson Button, and that's going to be a really interesting dogfight, with Raikkonen starting on the front row of the grid for only the 3rd time this season, and Button right behind him in 3rd place. A few new faces as well on the grid this afternoon, some old, some new. Jacques Villeneuve in for Jarno Trulli at Renault. Expecting possibly to see Trulli in a Toyota at Japan in a couple of weeks' time. As Kimi Raikkonen there just adjusts his helmet position. Ralf Schumacher, Martin just spoke to him on the grid. Nice to see him back after a 3-month layoff following that horrible accident in Indianapolis back in June. So Antonio Pizzoni slips back into the test driver role at Williams BMW. And Timo Glock at the back of the grid, towards the back for Jordan, standing in or replacing now Giorgio Pantano, who's had his contract terminated by the Jordan team. So Formula One always in a state of perpetual change, and change again here at Shanghai this weekend. There's Barrichello, 2nd pole in a row for him, 1st time he's done that in his career. And there's Schumacher, everybody at the ready for him. There's Ralf Schumacher and Fernando Alonso alongside him. 150,000 people here. They've certainly turned up here this afternoon in Shanghai to see this one. Huge crowd, 30,000 of them in the grandstands, just looking down, straight down on this pit straight. Tremendous sense of anticipation. The corporate boxes above the pits there are full of people as well. An extraordinary spectacle for a country that really does think big, this has been a really stunning debut.
Okay, start warming the brakes.
We're going to have team radio throughout this Grand Prix and future Grand Prix. Delighted to tell you that's Jenson Button's pit crew just telling him to start warming the brakes. We'll try and shut up whenever we see that symbol telling us there's team radio, but that'll certainly add some insight, I think, to today's Grand Prix. There's an awful lot of thinking on the feet to be done today by drivers and teams, isn't there?
Yes, what surprised me so far with the team radio stuff is the sort of obvious information that's being passed across. But, you know, maybe it's just good common sense, good housekeeping, if you like. But obviously Button there being told to warm his brakes. Would be surprised if he really needs to be reminded of that. But I guess at the same time, it's a good way of just having a radio check. Are we in communication? Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, a quick response. They cannot put the tyres on that car and the fuel in that car until the red lights have gone out. That's why they're waiting.
So we're going to have 56 laps of this wonderful 3.4-mile facility, 7 left-handed corners, 7 right-handed corners, a main straight which is well over 1 kilometre long, and the drivers on full throttle down there for over 15 seconds, hitting a top speed of just over 205 miles an hour. Some very slow speed corners as well. And, well, the average lap speed here about 130 miles an hour, which puts it around about the middle in average speeds for the season.
Yeah, they certainly can't refuel Schumacher's car to the lights go out, but under Parc Fermé rules, he's already been allowed to change the wheels and tyres because they were flat-spotted in the spin. They may just be keeping them in the blankets as long as they possibly can to give him maximum early grip. We'll keep an eye on that. But so there's going to be a lot of action down into turn 1. Barrichello must make it happen. But some brilliant viewing, I think, watching Sato and Michael Schumacher coming through. They're well out of position, of course, at the start of the Grand Prix. Rubens Barrichello really needs to get that pack round as quickly as he can. I'm surprised he's not pushing a little bit harder. He was earlier on in the lap, but Rubens really needs to get that pack round, because we know his Bridgestones don't work as well in cool conditions. We've seen it all year long, haven't we? As soon as you're in a cool tyre situation, the Michelins have a lot more mechanical grip.
6 different makes of cars then in the first 6 slots on the grid. Shows you just how competitive it is towards the end of this 2004 season. Ferrari got a bit of an uphill struggle with Michael Schumacher there starting from the pit lane. They're going to put the tyres on and the fuel in as soon as the red lights go out, and then what will the world champion do? This is a real test of his mettle, of his brilliance, and for sure we're going to see him and that Ferrari extended to the maximum here this afternoon.
There's not really a clean and dirty side of the grid here, because the natural line is to diagonal the pit straight to be on the left-hand side for turn 1. And so the cars are sort of passing pretty much through the middle of the pack. So pretty equal grip, I would say, left and right.
A giant step then into the Chinese Grand Prix. The first ever is go! Look at that, Montoya diving out from the back. Barrichello goes to cover Raikkonen. Button's up well, but he's been passed by one Sauber and by a Renault. Terrible start for Jenson Button. The Sauber and the Renault side by side into turn 1. The Renault on the inside. Massa in the Sauber gets a little nudge, and that allows Button through into 4th place. Rubens Barrichello leads then from Raikkonen. And everybody looks like they've got safely through. Button, though, still behind that Renault. Fast starting of Fernando Alonso.
That is worth millions to them, isn't it? And look at Massa coming back at Button and takes him. I thought Jenson really had been led off lightly by passing Massa, who's knocked out of shape. But Massa's just attacked straight away. Button back to 5th place then. Bad news for him. There was a Toyota almost stalled on the grid. It was Panis. He's down in 18th place.
And Fisichella has had a terrific start also in the sister Sauber to Sir Felipe Massa. You can see Massa at the top of the screen as Barrichello leads Raikkonen, with Alonso a little way back in 3rd. Then it's Massa. There's Button. Then Fisichella, Ralf Schumacher, David Coulthard, and Zonta goes through. Little lock up there from Jacques Villeneuve on his first competitive lap for over a year. Up 2 places then, Jacques Villeneuve off the start line into 10th place now as they come down this long back straight. And Jenson Button has got to get back past Felipe Massa, because we're going to start seeing those Bridgestone tyres fading a little bit. Massa, though, has got other ideas. He's having a look up the inside of Alonso.
And look at slipstreaming at the back there. That's a recovering Panis in the Toyota. looking at the backer, trying to pass Glock in the Jordan, and he didn't make it.
And in the distance, in the far, far distance, is Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, entering the top of your frames. Where is he? Just coming in, anytime now. There he is. That's the end of lap 1. That's how far Michael Schumacher is behind his team leader, Rubens Barrichello. It's 16 seconds and counting.
Well, Massa's looking fast and very light, you'd have to say. But Montoya, bad start, back down to 12th. Sato up 5 places from 19th on the grid, currently P14. He's had a good run. But Michael Schumacher then, 16 seconds away from his teammate who's leading the race, but unfortunately 19 cars between them.
Mark Webber has got past Jacques Villeneuve. Webber then up to 10th in the Jaguar team. As I said, the announcement that Jaguar won't be racing next year, there he is. Bad news for all concerned, 350 people working for that team. Webber desperate to get points for them in his final 3 Grand Prix with the team. Barrichello leading then on lap 2. Raikkonen half a second behind. Alonso is 3rd. 4th is Massa. 5th is Button. 6th, Giancarlo Fisichella in the other Sauber. 7th, Ralf Schumacher. 8th, David Coulthard. 9th, Ricardo Zonta in the Toyota. And as I say, 10th, Mark Webber with Jacques Villeneuve just behind him. Very disappointing start for Juan Montoya. He's down in 12th place in the Williams.
Well, the graining problem hasn't come yet for Rubens Barrichello, because he's pulling away, and he's much faster than Michael Schumacher, interestingly. And still Panis is trying to get by Glock. I thought he breezed past him with the power of that Toyota down the back straight, but no chance. But interestingly, Michael Schumacher, some 6 or 7 tenths slower, at least in the first 2 sectors, than Rubens Barrichello, suggesting he's very heavy on fuel. They put a lot of fuel in that Ferrari, and Michael Schumacher's in the pit lane.
Absolutely, he certainly did when he refueled before the start. Michael Schumacher on a completely different strategy from everyone else. It will all play out much, much later in this 56-lap Grand Prix. This is only lap 3. Jenson Button very anxious now to get past Felipe Massa in front of him. You can see he's looking for an opportunity absolutely everywhere. Fisichella, Massa's teammate, is waiting behind. And you can see Button going up the inside now as they go down the back straight. Can he get round the outside? No, he can't. A lot of the corners here in Shanghai, there's a right-hander followed by a left. There's an opportunity for the man who goes round the outside to make it stick into the next corner. Button hoping to find a way past here.
Yeah, he's much faster on the way out of the corners. Massa, I think, has got a bit of a front tyre problem. He's got a lot of understeer into the slower corners. I'm very much off message here, but this is not Hermann Tilke's best racetrack in my view. The corners are too technical. It doesn't really, you can't flow, you can't attack, there's no payback, but he's getting payback now. He's got so much more grip on the exit of the slow corners and just punishes Massa, puts him out wide, and now he can get up and after Alonso.
Great racing by Jenson Button, always happy to put a pass on someone. Massa wants a piece of him though, under braking into the hairpin. Button resists without having to go too defensive. Fisichella then right up behind his teammate. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is there, as well as David Coulthard. And here's the start again, Martin.
Yeah, reasonable start from just about everybody. You'll see the Toyota Panis parked at the back there. He did get away, but Barrichello then with the perfect start. Look at Alonso coming down the inside, very brave, but that is just, you know, you can make so much time in a Formula 1 car. It costs you millions, but put a start system on like that and it gains you at least a row every Grand Prix. Incredible.
Looking from Takuma Sato, who started back of the grid, 19th place. That's the Panis incident on the right. You can see hardly moving. Closing speed was immense. Down into this extremely tight turn 1. Lots of bumping and jostling. And that was Michael Schumacher refueling at the start. That's not happening now. That is a replay of what happened before the start. And here's another quick look at Jenson Button making that pass stick for 4th place then on Felipe Massa. Easy enough. There he goes.
He just hung him out to dry on the outside. Massa doesn't have the grip. He's got the straight line speed, though, no doubt about that. But Michael Schumacher in the 39s, passing traffic, 4 seconds slower than Rubens Barrichello. He is now 21 seconds adrift. Not looking good at this stage.
And what was interesting was before he caught the first of the Minardis, so in clear air, in other words, he and Rubens Barrichello in similar conditions, he was 1.5 seconds slower than Barrichello on that lap before he caught the traffic. So you say he's carrying an awful lot of fuel at the moment. That's the margin then. Barrichello out the front with Raikkonen right behind him.
And Massa's got to let Fisichella go. Massa has no pace at this stage. He has to let his teammate through. He's holding him up. That's backing, and now he lets him through. He should do anyway. No, he's not going to. He's really struggling with something in that car. Maybe it's the grainy Bridgestones we were hearing about, but that's backed Fisichella into Ralf Schumacher, and just behind Ralf Schumacher is David Coulthard.
Yeah, in the middle sector alone of that last lap, Felipe Massa was a second slower than Jenson Button, so Button is getting away really, really quickly from the cars following. And Fisichella, Ralf Schumacher, they'll all be desperate to get past him. David Coulthard there in the McLaren, also in the mixed. Zonta going well in the Toyota at the moment in 9th place. With Mark Webber in the Jaguar there, you can see just over a second behind. This is lap 5 of 56 here in Shanghai. Rubens Barrichello leading by less than a second. Ralf Schumacher has closed right up on Fisichella, trying to get through where Button got past Massa, but he can't make it stick.
Yeah, that's the problem there. The left leads into the right. There's only one line through it, and then right in your face on the exit, this right-hander, there's a tight left, followed by an immediately sweeping left. So once again, everybody using all the sides of the racetrack, but Coulthard getting a touch wide as he came out of that corner. Will they be able to do anything now as they head down the straight? Once again, Massa's back Fisichella up. Can Ralf Schumacher punish them for that? No, he's gone wide. He's lost out badly. Fisichella's doing well, though.
Yes, he is, alongside his teammate Felipe Massa. It's a drag race down the main straight. The two Ferrari-powered Saubers then, over a kilometre, flat chat, 200 miles an hour. Fisichella goes in front. Massa tucks in behind. He doesn't want to lose another place to Ralf Schumacher, but he has done. Ralf Schumacher goes through. Coulthard wants a bit of the action as well. He's alongside Massa, who's dropped 3 places. 2 places, call that, in one corner, almost 3 places, and we are definitely now in the phase of the Grand Prix, the early stages where those Bridgestone tyres on the Ferrari and the Sauber dropping away a bit. Look at Coulthard, he's so close behind Massa, you can hardly see him. Is he going to try the outside line? It's not been tried before, and he, well, caution the better part of Anna. He's contacted him, he's touched him.
I'm not sure did they touch? I think Coulthard locked up, because Massa locked up going into the last part of turn 2 there before they come down the corkscrew into 3, and Coulthard having to get back on the brakes when he thought that was all over with. Massa with no grip at all at the front end in the slow corners. Coulthard, and he's just backing the whole pack up, look.
5th to 13th, separated by just over a second. Absolutely extraordinary how close they are here, bunched up. Look at Barrichello, though. As I said before, the Bridgestone's in a difficult phase now in the Grand Prix, and that means Raikkonen is closing right up on Barrichello in the battle for the lead. We're riding on board with David Coulthard. That's Felipe Massa in front of us.
Now this is Coulthard's chance. Massa's going to go into the right with understeer. He'll go badly understeering into this next right-hander here, and Coulthard should better come right up the inside of him. It doesn't work. Massa's got better grip this time. Now Fisichella is not up the inside of him as he was last time around, and Sauber's quick down the straight, so may not work out for Coulthard. This is the grainy phase then that Ross Brawn was talking about, and Raikkonen right up there with race leader Barrichello.
Certainly is. It was half a second at the end of the last lap. Raikkonen's taken it down to 2/10. Alonso is still third, just over 3 seconds behind the race leader, with Button right behind Alonso now. Don't forget, there's a terrific scrap going on for second in the World Championship, Constructors' Championship, between Renault and BAR, and well, Alonso at the moment is in front of Button, and that's good news for the Renault team, trying to get that second place back again. Just explain what you mean by the graining phase, Martin, for the benefit of the viewers.
As the tyre scrubs across, sideways across the tracks, it's sliding through a corner. It rips the surface, the rubber sort of goes into little balls. It's like being on very fine ball bearings. A little bit more grip than that, of course, but that then just promotes more and more sliding. Until that wears off, and it doesn't always wear off, you don't pick up the normal level of grip. But interestingly, Barrichello's just done the fastest first sector of anybody so far. So has he gone through that phase?
Well, this is lap 7, and Ross Brawn was saying it was a 3 or 4 lap phase after the beginning. With the first lap, they get a lot of punishment off the start line, a lot of pressure, driving as hard as they can on these tyres. That punishes them. They drop away for a little while, and then they start to come back, and it looks for me, Barrichello's done the fastest first sector. Raikkonen has done the fastest second sector of the race so far. But look at Button at the back of your screens there. He's having a go at Alonso. Alonso goes defensive. Button will not have any of it. He's coming down the inside, whether Alonso likes it or not. A cracking move from the British Bulldog, Jenson Button.
Nicely done. Then he covered his bases, covered the apex nicely and the exit. And he's got the speed to pull away from Alonso now and head off after the leading 2. It's looking very good for Button. Coulthard also has passed Massa out the back there somewhere. Alonso will dream about it, but there's no way through down into turn 1 unless Button makes a mistake. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher now 27 seconds off the lead. and still lapping 3 to 4 seconds a lap slower.
He is. He's carrying more fuel than anybody else in front. We're expecting the first cars to come into the pits anytime between about lap 9 and lap 15. So we're getting quite close to the first pit stop window. Schumacher almost half a minute then behind Rubens Barrichello. But bear in mind, he's going to make at least one, if not two, fewer stops than his teammate. Probably one less. And an awful lot of racing still to go here. Schumacher is in 17th place. So far, he's managed to pass only the Jordan of Timo Glock and the two Minardis of Baumgartner and Bruni running in 19th and 20th. All 20 starters still running here at Shanghai. Barrichello leading on lap 8. Raikkonen is second, Button third, Alonso fourth, fifth is Fisichella, sixth Ralf Schumacher, seventh David Coulthard has got past Felipe Massa. Zonta has as well, he's in 8th place, and Massa down to 9th with Webber still 10th for Jaguar.
Coulthard flying now in 7th place. He's about to do, I think, just about the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. The Michelins are looking good. Raikkonen then still hustling. Rubens Barrichello just a few tenths between them. But, you know, Michael, 28 seconds down, a second a lap slow, even in clear air. That's not working out, James. Whatever they've done, whatever they're trying to do, he's not got the raw pace we expected.
He's going to come up behind the Toyota of Olivier Panis very soon in 16th place as Button sets the fastest lap of the race so far, dipping into the 1:34.5s. Very quick pace from Jenson Button. He's trying to make up the lost ground of that very poor start he had. He was passed by a couple of cars off the start line. He's finally got himself back to 3rd place where he started on the grid, but the bad news is he's 4 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen and lapping about 1/10 or 2/10 of a lap faster than the McLaren driver. We're riding on board now with Raikkonen. That is the race leader in front of us, Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari. How's this McLaren looking at the moment?
It's, yeah, it doesn't look quite as bolted down as I thought it would, given the speed that he's doing. But as we've said all weekend, this is a precision racetrack. It's not, you can't just sail in and attack and expect payback. You've got to have the right amount of throttle in the right place all the time to make it work. And Button there, the ever understeering Renault beginning to fall away. This is Villeneuve, and he gets, that's Montoya, I think, coming back at him, isn't it? And Villeneuve then cutting back on the inside. And this is, they've a good squabble for position. This is 11th and 12th. Villeneuve just nailing it back, gets the car straighter earlier, less traction control. That's not about power, that's about traction.
No love lost between these two. Some very harsh words been exchanged in the old days when perhaps we saw the old Jacques Villeneuve. It's a very smiley Jacques Villeneuve that we have now. Back for 3 races with Renault here and Suzuka Japan in a couple of weeks' time, and then Interlagos, Brazil, final race of the season. And we already know that Villeneuve will be a Sauber driver next year, replacing Giancarlo Fisichella, who's going to occupy that Renault seat in 2005. So Jacques Villeneuve is back in business. He's done remarkably well considering he's only had 450 miles of testing before coming here to Shanghai. But I suppose learning a new track like everybody else, it's sort of neutralised it a little bit.
Cracking race we got on here. They all did, the first 3, Barrichello, Raikkonen, Button, they all did virtually identical lap times last time around. Coulthard matched them just about 2, back in 7th place. He's homing in on 6th place man Ralf Schumacher. No sign of any pit stops yet, James. If anybody was sort of deluding themselves in qualifying, they'd have been in by about now, wouldn't they? Where's Michael? Michael now 31.7 seconds behind the leader and tucked up behind Panis's Toyota, and that's no easy meet in a straight line.
It certainly isn't. Toyota, one of the most powerful engines in Formula 1, and down this long straight here, Schumacher will struggle to get past him. I'll give you an idea of the relative pace then. Michael Schumacher doing 1:36.5 on the last lap. Rubens Barrichello 1:34.1. All 3 of the front runners, as Martin said, doing virtually identical, not just first sector times, but lap times. Very, very close indeed. Just by a whisker, the fastest of the 3 at the moment is Jenson Button, who is still, though, around about 4 seconds behind race leader 4 seconds behind Raikkonen, and nearly 5 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello. This is lap 11. Here's Schumacher.
Yeah, I think he just switched the radio on. I don't know if he's talking. There's a light come on, whether he's got a push radio button that leaves it on, but I'll not be hearing a lot as he's pulling 18,500 revs. But he's, whatever it was, he's now switched it off again. But look, the traffic, he can't do anything about Panis. And Massa pits from 10th place, and he'll be mighty relieved about that. Did I see Panis bolting down the pit lane as well?
Yes, she did. That's good news for Michael Schumacher, who crosses the start-finish line now, takes up that 16th place then, and the next car he's going to have to pass is Christian Klien in the Jaguar. As Massa, you suspected he was a little bit light on fuel, judging by his early pace, and you were absolutely right, Martin. He is the first to pit here in Shanghai. Also, Olivier Panis, who qualified very creditable 8th place, but once again, fuel had something to do with that. He wasn't carrying an awful lot of it. He too makes an early stop. This is lap 11. There is the race leader. We've got a rather sad-looking Minardi going very slowly down the straight. Barrichello closing in on it at a rapid rate of knots.
He's got a right rear suspension failure or puncture, can't quite see, but right rear is not pointing the way it ought to be. So he'll be crawling back to the pits. Track's in great condition. This lap times are stunning for the sort of pace we've seen through free practice. Quite clearly, it's giving plenty of grip back to the drivers now. And Herman Tilke, the designer, said to me, this hasn't got quite the same stones in it as some other mixture, and he thinks it'll take a year for this track to give up its full amount of grip.
Fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far for Rubens Barrichello. Giancarlo Fisichella, what rotten luck for him. He's been held up by the Minardi. That's definitely cost him time. Doesn't look as though it's cost Coulthard too much time, though. McLaren are ready for him, and the other Toyota as well of Zonta comes into the pits. Look at the dust as they came in. A lot of talk about this apron here being very slippery, but one or two of the mechanics a little bit concerned about their drivers coming in too hot, possibly knocking them over. But at the moment, no problems, I'm delighted to say, for everybody, as Coulthard rejoins the race. This is the scrap up front. It looks a bit closer now.
Yeah, Coulthard didn't clear the Sauber. Fisichella followed him out of the pit lane, but they're in close company now. Ralf Schumacher has yet to pit, so there's a good squabble as well, not just the top three, but Alonso, Ralf Schumacher, and I think Fisichella and Coulthard will all be in very close company when we finish the first round of stops.
Here's Michael Schumacher then. This is a move on Christian Klien for what was 13th place. Oh, that was serious contact. Has it bent anything on the Ferrari?
He got the full Christmas tree lights on the dashboard, whatever that means, but to be honest, that was coming from about 100 metres out, Michael. I think he thought Klien would maybe just politely move out of the way, but we've seen this so many times with Michael, haven't we? He does tend to run into people when he's coming back through the pack as the two leaders in the pits.
Yep, straight fight then between the two pit crews. Ferrari in first, a cloud of dust, because Jenson Button sets the fastest lap of the race so far. He is now taken over the lead, 1:33.4 for Button. He really wants this, doesn't he? Who's going to get out first? Barrichello is going to get out first, as you'd expect in the Ferrari. Raikkonen right behind him.
They both look like they put quite a lot of fuel on board, didn't they? I didn't see the full times, but that's worked out beautifully for them too. Away from the traffic, so no turnaround of position, but both drivers will be satisfied with that. And I mean, obviously Raikkonen would have hoped to have leapfrogged the Ferrari, but he'll still be satisfied to be perfectly well within touch. But Button is flying. He knows this is a key part of the race. If he is carrying more fuel, now is when he's got to make the difference.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see what kind of strategy everyone employs. That looks to me like it could be a 2 or a 3 stop, probably a 2, I think, from both of the front runners. That was 8 seconds they were stationary for. Christian Klien we saw hitting Michael Schumacher in the hairpin just a minute ago, and well, his car's certainly been damaged, as Michael's.
I think it was Michael hitting Christian, really, when you sort of see the replay of that one. Michael really, I think, just pushing his luck and everybody's luck too far in there. At least he's now back down to 34s, Michael Schumacher, so no damage for him, it appears. Ted, have you got any more news?
I'm down at Ferrari. No, that's quite right, Martin. I've checked with the team. Michael hasn't radioed in with any damage. Says the car's fine, which is more than you can say for Klien, but all Ferrari very nervous, very happy about Rubens, though. I think they're pretty sure he's going to, well, do the job for them if Michael's not.
Well, I'll tell you the guy who's doing the job at the moment, that's Jenson Button. Lap 14 out of 56 here at Shanghai, and Jenson Button still the fastest man on the racetrack, leading this Grand Prix from Fernando Alonso, who dives into the pits now from second place. So that promotes Ralf Schumacher in the Williams up into second place. Longish stop by Renault, and he goes back out as well. So Jenson Button leading once again, as he has quite often in the 2004 championship. Michael Schumacher benefiting from all these pit stops. He is up into 10th place, and now he's 6 seconds behind Takuma Sato in the sister BAR to this one. That's Button, the leader, and Sato also making his way through the field. Remember, he started 19th on the grid because he had to have an engine change on Friday, which drops you automatically 10 places back on the grid from where you qualify. So soon you've got two very fast cars coming through the field, and Schumacher is behind another fast car, Takuma Sato. That's going to be very interesting.
Yes, Button was about 4 seconds adrift when Barrichello and Raikkonen pitted. Depends how long he can stay out, but of course he's now light on fuel, they're heavy on fuel, fresh tyres. Barrichello will have to go through the grainy phase yet again, and so BAR team out then in their fresh, differently coloured overalls, and he's in the pit, so he's not going quite as far as we'd hoped. And has he made up 4 seconds on them with those hot laps and a good in lap? We're about to find out, but it's a lot to do.
They certainly were very, very quick laps indeed. Rubens Barrichello, well, we're not getting any indication. He was slightly slower on his out lap than Kimi Raikkonen, so possibly some hope for Button. This is going to have to be a very slick stop here by BAR to get their man out.
I wonder if they'll even just shorter it slightly. Oh, slow away, Jensen. Oh, no, come on. No, what didn't work, something not quite right there, and there they go, there they go. He's actually lost some time. He must get ahead of the traffic, and he does just. So that cost him quite dearly, didn't it? It just didn't seem to want to get away from its stop.
Give you an idea of where he is. He's come out, you can see, just in front of his teammate Takuma Sato, and that Ferrari you saw going down the straight, that was Michael Schumacher. So that's where he is relative to the others. As we know, he's carrying a lot more fuel, a completely different strategy from everywhere else, and he's currently in 10th place. He's up to 9th now because Jacques Villeneuve has just pitted. So Schumacher is in the top 10 already, and Ted Kravitz has news for us.
Jacques Villeneuve was very slow into the box. He was taking care. Of course, he hasn't done a pit stop in a race since September, but now is the time that Juan Montoya has to push. He was so close behind him. I think Montoya is in this lap, though.
Yeah, what's interesting, though, Ted and everybody, is that Michael Schumacher now down in the 1:33.6s, so he has found now some incredible pace. Why he was so slow, even in free air early on, the traffic I could understand, but all of a sudden, Schumi is hooked up. That obviously woke him up a little bit when he went into the side of clean. Button then has rejoined. Barrichello leads from Kimi Raikkonen.
Lap 17 of what is turning out to be a terrific first ever Chinese Grand Prix at Shanghai. This racetrack has been designed to encourage free-flowing movement and overtaking. We've seen plenty of that. Michael Schumacher, though, has been in the wars again. Martin, traction control related?
It does look like that, although he's now flying again, and you'd have to say, did the traction control just drop out there? Because it's unusual these days to see the rear wheels spinning like that. But unless he's had to reset it. Remember when he hit clean, we saw his steering wheel light up, and that's all part of the software package. Quite clearly, that caught him completely by surprise, as Michael Schumacher now nails the Sauber of Fisichella for what is 9th place. Great speed all of a sudden, having been very tardy in the early stage of the race. We're pretty certain, in fact, we're now sure that they put a lot of fuel in his car when he started from the pit lane. And this is a replay then of when Michael Schumacher next time around had a run at Coulthard. He then takes his normal line for the hairpin. Coulthard says, "I'll have a go back, mate," but went in just too hot. Michael tucks underneath him, and that's Fisichella ahead, who he passes, of course, next lap.
Fantastic. It's like Formula Ford racing. Really are throwing all their energy into this. Great stuff here. Ted Kravitz has got news for us.
Down at Ferrari again, James. Ferrari claim that there's no problem with the traction control and that it was on when Michael had the spin. They say it's also working fine now. So their explanation, apart from a driver mistake, is that they reckon he lost downforce because he was very close behind Alonso.
On lap 18 then, Rubens Barrichello, who started from pole position. He's looking for his first ever back-to-back Formula One victories, having won 2 weeks ago the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. He is leading Kimi Raikkonen in the McLaren by 0.4 of a second. That's the margin back to third-placed Jenson Button, who's driving splendidly here this afternoon, as is his teammate Takuma Sato, who started 19th. And before Schumacher had that spin, he was just 4 seconds behind Sato. You can see how much he's now lost, because he's 17 seconds he lost because of that spin, Martin, because he's dropped down into 8th place now. Behind Sato is Alonso in the Renault, Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, Nick Heidfeld, who has just made a pit stop for Jordan, and Michael Schumacher as Sato dives into the pits.
Does indeed. Raikkonen just half a second adrift of Barrichello. Michael Schumacher about to set a new fastest lap, the fastest lap of the weekend, fastest lap ever of this racetrack, a 1:32.6. That's 2 seconds faster than anybody else out there at the moment. Schumi's just suddenly decided to get on with it.
Well, we're 19 laps into this fuel load, a big heavy fuel load that was put in by these Ferrari mechanics before the start of the race. They know how much fuel he's carrying. He's going quite a long way into this Grand Prix before making his first stop. Michael Schumacher, the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment by some distance. He's going at least half a second a lap faster, half a second per sector faster than his teammate Rubens Barrichello. So 1.5 seconds in total over the course of the lap. He's absolutely flying. And, well, the next man he's going to come across is his teammate, or is his brother, rather, Ralf Schumacher, who's in 6th place. And I'd like to be riding on board with Michael when he encounters him. We're on with Raikkonen, though, and here's a new graphic.
Well, all the drivers are now going to have to be told, get on with it, got to push harder. Schumacher is on the rampage. The green sector you can see there underneath, and the red sector, throttle on. You can see him playing with the throttle and then stamping it down. And the brake, of course, will light up as he heads down into turn 1. Let's see when he puts that on. Very almost into the heart of the corner, isn't he? And the front just wandering out. And the corner keeps turning, but the car doesn't want to. It's a slightly frustrating corner, that one, as you dip downhill. And once again, then a lot of work for the front tyres with a constant radius left-hander. An easy kink right down into a big stop for a hairpin. But Raikkonen keeping Barrichello very honest. And yet another new fastest lap for Michael Schumacher. Again, 2 seconds faster than anybody else on the racetrack. They've all got to start pushing.
Absolutely. 21 seconds behind now. There we go. Just what I wanted. On board with Michael Schumacher. Brother Ralf making his return after 3 months on the sideline due to injury after a horrendous crash in Indianapolis in June. This is his first race back. Is he going to make it tough for his brother? Yes, he is. He always says, I don't make it easy for my brother, and he certainly didn't there. Came across on him. Michael Schumacher, though, is so much faster than his brother. That last lap, he was nearly 3 seconds a lap faster than him. Ralf Schumacher, fat with fuel, having made a pit stop, looking a little bit ragged as he tries to keep Michael behind him. Schumacher Sr. on the rampage. And, well, some Chinese characters there on the back wing of Ralph's car. Probably says something like, honk if you think I'm driving well. But at the moment he's driving brilliantly and very defensively to keep his brother behind him. Out onto the back straight though. Can the Ferrari power over the slipstream overhaul Ralph? He goes to the left. Ralph's down the inside. Michael's going to try and drive down the outside. A nonchalant little wave to him as he goes by. And is Ralph going to have another go?
He's just having fun. No,
Is he
Ralph did not have a go at Michael. That was great. The wave was great, wasn't it? Let's just analyse this. Started from the pit lane and he goes back into the pit lane. That's how far he's got. 21 laps. That's why he's pushing so hard. Had a spin, ran into clean, but he needs to make up about 46 seconds in 30 laps if he's going to win this Grand Prix. But unfortunately, he's got to start all over again now with fuel and go through that difficult period of the tyres. So let's keep an eye on his pace as he exits the pit. So Michael's in there somewhere. Surely he can't win this one, but if he can do those sort of laps, he's going to be in there somewhere. Louise is down with Christian Klein.
Christian, pretty aggressive move from Michael Schumacher. Do you feel maybe it was too aggressive?
I don't know, I have to check it in the TV first, but yeah, just very disappointed to finish the race early. Just I went into the corner and went a bit wide because I saw he's somewhere on the inside. But then he hit me on the rear and my suspension broke there and I had to retire the race.
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for him there, but he did kind of leave a big gap as if he had seen and was prepared to let Michael through, but it was for position. He was perfectly entitled to turn in, and Michael made sure to hit him square on with his front wheel.
So Schumacher emerged from that pit stop behind Jacques Villeneuve. So he's in 15th place now, and Villeneuve is 44 seconds behind race leader Rubens Barrichello. So Schumacher has a mountain to climb here at Shanghai.
10 seconds. You're about 1 second slower than Fernando at the moment, Jack, so push hard, please.
Team asking.
Am I losing the most? Sector one is your poorest.
Okay, Jacques' question was, where am I losing the time most? And he's been told in the first part of the lap, obviously. And an interesting conversation going on there in the race. And sometimes you're pushing as hard as you can. You think you're near the ragged edge, and you get a pit bull or a message like that. And then you realise there's something extra in the track.
So Schumacher is behind Villeneuve, 3.5 seconds behind him. And that's going to be the battle for 13th place coming up shortly. At the moment on lap 22, Rubens Barrichello still only half a second behind Kimi Raikkonen. There's Raikkonen, you can see just behind the race leader. Button has dropped back a little bit now. He's 8.5 seconds behind Raikkonen in 3rd place, with Alonso 4th, Ralf Schumacher 5th, and Giancarlo Fisichella in 6th place. quite up to half distance here in the first ever Chinese Grand Prix at Shanghai. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. We're on the back straight. We're doing close on 200 miles an hour in the company of Kimi Raikkonen and the McLaren Mercedes, currently lying in second place, full throttle. You can see the green. Watch him hit the brake there. About 2.5 seconds of braking takes him down to 35 miles an hour for that very, very tight hairpin. And this short little shoot, and a left-hander, that's Rubens Barrichello, the race leader in front of us. This is lap 24. The gap is just coming up to a second now, because Barrichello starting to ease away slightly from Kimi Raikkonen. Jenson Button is still in third place. He's about 10 seconds behind these two, driving very much on his own, because behind him another 10 seconds is Fernando Alonso. Ralf Schumacher is fifth. Sixth is Fisichella, seventh David Coulthard, and eighth Ricardo Zonta. It's been an odd afternoon in many ways, particularly for Michael Schumacher, who started from the pit lane, was making amazing progress, but then had a spin, having just set the fastest lap of the race. He had a big spin, lost about 15 seconds or so, and then he's had a pit stop. He is down in 14th place, closing in on Jacques Villeneuve, who's driving the Renault this weekend. And it was an awful lot of motor racing still to go here at Shanghai. And it's certainly been pretty exciting so far.
Let's have a look down the field. Unfortunately, Jenson Button has no pace at all at this stage of the Grand Prix, losing 1.3 seconds last time around. But he didn't appear to put any greater amount of fuel in than the others, I don't think, James, did it?
But it's strange, isn't it, Martin? The same thing happened at Monza. It's happened several times that after a pit stop, the BAR has not had the pace in the middle part of the race when he's really needed it. I mean, it's a bit of a pattern with particularly with his car.
Yeah, maybe it's when they're putting brand new tyres on, other than not the scrubbed ones, of course, that he used in qualifying. This, of course, is Jenson Button. Down into the hairpin, one corner to go for him to the end of the lap. Well, that's the gap back to Alonso. They're beginning to stretch out now. Ralf Schumacher, Fisichella, Coulthard about a second behind Fisichella, just slowly homing in on him. They're 6th, 7th, 8th is Zonta. Massa then still going around 9th. Sato has got up to 10th from the back of the grid. Can't get any further, and 7 seconds adrift of Massa.
Yep, Michael Schumacher got as far as 14th. He's got his work cut out if he's going to get a podium here this afternoon. Just looking down at the grid again, certainly the front three they are at the moment, the front three off the grid. Jenson Button had a bit of work to do. He had a poor start, dropped down to 5th place into the first corner, but quickly fought his way back up into 3rd place. Alonso, he started 6th. He's currently in 4th place, so that's a big gain for him as Zonta comes into the pits from 9th in the Toyota. The big loser really has been Felipe Massa, who started 4th on the grid and has dropped down to 8th place. Meanwhile, David Coulthard started in 9th, but he's back up to 8th.
It's team radio there for Zonta saying push, because they know he needs to get back out in front of the Ferrari. Didn't manage to do that. If Michael Schumacher had managed to go to about 26, 27, I think we could start getting super excited. But unfortunately, when he had to pit at 21, I think that's put him out of kilter. I think he's more enjoying himself than anything else. But my take on that is he's got to stop twice. He's got to stop once more, isn't he? It cannot be a one-stop. Otherwise, you've got 30-odd laps to do on one set of tyres, but maybe just a quick splash and dash towards the end.
Yeah, it's interesting he stopped when he did. It wasn't that much later than the other people, so obviously he needed a fuel load which wouldn't harm the tyres too much. With the Bridgestone tyres throughout the free practice session were seeing some graining problems. The grip was going away from them. So obviously it's a delicate balancing act for the team. It's not simply a case of filling the thing with fuel, because the tyres simply can't take it over a long stint. But we reckon that he'll probably have to do his second pit stop on around lap 44, which is only 12 before the finish, so it'll be a bit of a splash and dash really for Schumacher, but the brevity of that pit stop may well be the key to it. Hard on the brakes then, 30-odd miles an hour, picking up the throttle, and coming into the left-hander then, the final corner, as a very bald set of Bridgestone tyres come off the Sauber of Felipe Massa. He was the first car to pit first time round, and he's the first one to make his second stop here this afternoon of the front runners.
Barrichello 1.1 seconds ahead of Raikkonen, just edging it out a tenth at a time. Button 14 seconds off the lead now, And Rubens there clearing the Minardi nicely before the hairpin. It's important. Every little move like this now could have an effect on the final outcome of the Grand Prix. And Raikkonen pits, and he pits right behind the Minardi, and he's going to be so unhappy about that, because and that's an early stop again for Raikkonen. Then the Minardi will not attack the speed line like he would want it to have done, and especially if he doesn't get out before him as well. So bad news for McLaren and Kimi Raikkonen.
But it's interesting, two of them stopped at the same time, Barrichello and Raikkonen, last time on lap 12. They took on an almost identical amount of fuel. This is a very short stop here for Kimi Raikkonen. I wonder whether he feels he's being held up by Rubens Barrichello. The margin was only pretty small, and well, he's obviously trying something a little bit different here, and he blends back in just in front of that will be Alonso.
Yeah, he was 27 seconds ahead of Alonso, so they knew they could get him in, get him stopped and away again. And as you say, they've short-filled him. This is to try and give him track position, which is why that sort of second or two he lost behind the Minardi that would not be attacking, as I say, the left-hander in the pit lane and the speed line in the same way.
It was interesting seeing Fisichella there. He went out on a set of tyres that looked as though they'd done some mileage. I know Sauber was scrubbing in tyres during the free practice session, and well, we'll get more for you on that. It certainly seems to me as though they're trying a different tactic down at Sauber. That was not a new set of tyres. Louise Goodman, what can you tell us?
Well, not a lot, James. I'm down at VAR. I've been trying to find out what's happening with Jenson Button. He hasn't said anything to the team over the radio. What I can say, though, is that Jeff Willis, the technical director, is sat out on the pit wall looking cool, calm and very collected. If there was some kind of issue, he would generally come back into the garage and have a look at the telemetry. So let's hope no news is good news.
I think I've worked out what McLaren were doing there. Villeneuve is being caught by Michael Schumacher, and I think McLaren wanted to get Raikkonen back out before Schumacher got in front. Because the later they went on that with Raikkonen before making the pit stop, there's a chance that he might have come out behind Michael Schumacher, which wouldn't have been a good thing. Michael Schumacher certainly going pretty quickly at the moment, closing down Jacques Villeneuve, and at the moment Raikkonen's made a stop and he's in front of Michael Schumacher.
Barrichello's responded to Raikkonen's early stop tactics by doing a new fastest lap of the race, a 32.4. You'd have to wonder if they're in there, why he hasn't been pulling them out a little bit earlier. Coulthard's pitting from 6th place in the Sister McLaren, but Barrichello then responding with an incredibly fast lap time. Montoya doing a wall of death around the outside of the final turn. He's down in 8th at the moment, having a bit of an ordinary weekend, Juan Pablo.
Yeah, towards the end of a fairly ordinary season by his standards, no wins. And it's been pretty lean times for Juan Pablo Montoya, on his way to McLaren next year, replacing David Coulthard, as we know. And well, he's going to have a stiff challenge there, isn't he, as teammate to Kimi Raikkonen, very much the coming man in Formula One. Raikkonen shown as being third now on the racetrack, having made that second pit stop. And Rubens Barrichello, that's why he was going quickly. He's coming in too for his second stop of the afternoon. So it looks very much as though the two race leaders are on a 3-stop plan here this afternoon. We know Michael Schumacher has got only one brief pit stop to make towards the end of the Grand Prix. Is he still a contender here, Michael Schumacher? Never, ever count him out.
Schumacher hasn't managed to get past Villeneuve in 11th and 12th places at the moment. Solid stop for Ferrari. The rear tyres only just on before the refueling was finished. That's unusual. And Raikkonen still being held up coming down the pit straight, and it hasn't worked out at all well for them.
No, it hasn't, has it? Not enough time for Kimi Raikkonen to make a difference there. The Minardi, well, it held him up on the way into the pit stop, one of them, and the other one held him up on the way out. So Raikkonen not able to get in front himself in front of Barrichello. But he has got a good distance between himself and Michael Schumacher. Alonso is in 4th place then behind Raikkonen. 5th is Ralf Schumacher. 6th Takuma Sato. 7th Juan Montoya. 8th David Coulthard. 9th then Giancarlo Fisichella. The Saubers fading a little bit then in the middle part of this Grand Prix, having had a very, very strong start. Both Massa and Fisichella just drifting out of the picture now.
Amazing, they're almost picking their left front wheel up coming out of turn 8 and 9 there. So quite a lot of roll in the car. It's unusual to see that. Formula One cars normally pretty well planted on all fours. But that's the nature of those longer, tightening corners as they start to squeeze on the power. You get squat at the rear end of the car, tries to pick the front up. The car very much works as one unit. But we now know Barrichello, just the potential of his leading Ferrari with that 1:32.4. New fastest lap of the Grand Prix, new lap record therefore, of course, as the first race. But Barrichello seems like he's going to always have an answer for Kimi Raikkonen, James.
Certainly does. Jenson Button then, the race leader, has yet to make his second stop of the afternoon, where Barrichello and Raikkonen have both done so. Button has 7.5-second lead over the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello, and well, at the moment, once Button makes his second stop, that will drop him back probably to third place. He was well clear of Alonso in the early stages of the Grand Prix, and he's well clear of him now, so that should mean that Jenson Button's still on target for a podium. He's not got the pace, though, of Kimi Raikkonen here this afternoon, which is disappointing for him.
But what if Jenson's two-stopping? Let's see how far he can... That's for Alonso. That's what you can hear from inside the car, only about... Now he's saying, I don't want that. Okay, so clear message then. He's still busy handling the understeer through the corner. He's like, no, don't give me any more front wing. I'm quite satisfied with the balance I've got.
More front wing, meaning more downforce, would push the front of the car down more onto the racetrack, give it better turn in to the corners. They were asking him whether he wanted more of that, and he was saying, no, no, whilst turning the steering wheel, changing gears, and driving at an average speed of well over 130 miles an hour. Always a portion of a racing driver's brain available to think about other things while still managing to push to the absolute maximum. We're riding on board with Jenson Button. Another 6 points here this afternoon for the BAR team would take them past the magic 100 points in the championship season. And in previous years, that's been enough to, well, certainly to be the champions. But BAR having a terrific season, and at the moment holding off Renault in that fight for second in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, with that sort of dexterity, I reckon Alonso get a job driving a transit van around the M25. That's the only other time I've seen people doing so many things at the wheel. But Fernando then being very clear with the team, though. It was good in terms of he absolutely, you know, he made his mind up and he was going to stick with it. It wasn't a discussion point as far as he was concerned.
Talking of the M25, the traffic here in Shanghai getting into and out of the circuits has made the M25 look like a freeway. It's absolutely extraordinary. Car ownership here in China really is on the increase for a country that's still the vehicle of choice is still the bicycle, but you can see how car ownership exploding over the next few years, and well, it may well be gridlocked by the time we come back here in 5 years' time, but it's certainly the car industry is getting its claws into China, and that's a big part of why we're here racing this weekend. So Honda, Mercedes-Benz, BMW and the rest can advertise and sell their cars here, and Toyota, to the Chinese people. There goes Button sailing past the Toyota and goes through to complete another lap, still in the lead. There's David Richards, team boss, on the pit wall. And you've heard a whisper that maybe Button might stay at the team next year if at the moment the lawyers are beginning to think that it's heading towards BAR.
Yeah, that's just the feeling in the paddock, as it seems to be at least the legal resolution may be heading BAR's direction. Whether there's any subsequent wheeling and dealing goes on remains to be seen, but it's taking some time. It's going to be well into October before we know. But interesting that Jenson Button is still on the racetrack, because if he's only two-stopping, then he's got to stop one more time, has Barrichello and Raikkonen, and he's currently 8 seconds ahead of them. So all of a sudden, that slightly slower pace after the first stop begins to make more sense. It
does begin to make a lot of sense. If he stopped on lap 14 stationary for about 9 seconds, which he was, that would put him making a second stop around about lap 35 or 36, which is bang on target for a classic two-stop strategy here at Shanghai. So that is what was going on, we think, with the BAR Honda of Jenson Button, and that means he's in pretty good shape. He's 8 seconds ahead of Barrichello and Raikkonen, and they've all got to stop once more. Ted, what can you tell us?
Yeah, it's becoming clear down in the BAR garage that that's most likely the case. There's no activity from any of the mechanics. They're standing by. They know they've got until maybe, well, as you say, lap 37, possibly lap 38. And the good thing is that Jenson is now matching Raikkonen's pace, and that's absolutely crucial. If he can keep this gap, he's got a really, really good chance.
He'll have a longer pit stop, though. He's got to take on board more fuel, it seems almost sure. Depends just how far it can go, but all of a sudden it's turning around and looking very nice for Button. So 3 men still very much in with a chance of winning this race. Alonso a touch off the pace, 15 seconds adrift, and he pits for his 3rd stop of the afternoon. So it's a 3-way fight at this stage. There is Alonso.
Yeah, Ralf Schumacher just in front of Alonso before he made that stop. So Ralf's having a good afternoon, even though we haven't seen a great deal of him. But 17 seconds off race leader Jenson Button would imply that he's not likely to be a factor in the podium fight. But Button certainly is. Barrichello, Raikkonen and Button duking out the podium places at the moment. Michael Schumacher, how's he doing? 12th at the moment, 54 seconds behind the race leader, and crucially 45 seconds behind the final podium position. So really, as we approach, we've gone past the half distance mark here in Shanghai. Michael Schumacher has gone a little bit quiet.
Yeah, he just can't get past Villeneuve. It seems as soon as they've loaded that Ferrari up with fuel, it's nowhere. Get towards the end of its fuel tank, and both of them just have this incredible pace. I've never seen such a variation in pace of one car over a stint, James. Quite incredible for them.
Riding on board with 24-year-old Jenson Button, originally hails from Frome in Somerset, now lives in Monte Carlo, along with the other rich and famous, and really has come of age this season. Already scored 8 podiums in this year's World Championship, consolidated in 3rd place, unlikely to be able to pinch 2nd off Rubens Barrichello, unless he wins here and Barrichello has a few non-scores for the rest of the season. Anything could happen in Formula One, and often does, but certainly it's been a tremendous season for Jenson Button, and he's really looking pretty strong here at Shanghai at the moment. Barrichello and Raikkonen circulating together as Ralf Schumacher pits from 4th place.
Meanwhile, Button setting his fastest first sector. Those harder Michelins obviously take a bit of time to come up to speed. But once again then, Jenson Button now finding his way, finding the grip and balance that he needs. And that didn't quite work out for Ralf Schumacher, did it?
So it looks as though Ralf Schumacher, Jenson Button and Fernando Alonso are all on 2-stop strategies here, while Rubens Barrichello and Kimi Raikkonen are on 3-stoppers. Michael Schumacher has finally got past Jacques Villeneuve, but he didn't do it on the racetrack. There you can see Villeneuve at the top of the screen just a moment ago has dived into the pit lane. So Michael Schumacher is released finally, but he's got an awful lot to do. He's a minute behind Jenson Button.
Now keep an eye on this. Will Jenson take the last corner, or does he have to pit? It's a pity if he does. He'll be at the end of lap. He's going in the pits. The end of lap 35. I wish he was going just 2 or 3 laps further than that. But still got a chance. Still got a very good chance.
This needs to be a good stop by the BAR Honda crew. They've gone up from Division 2 to Division 1 this year in performance. The pit crew need to take a similar step. 10.
Jenson is steady into the box, not particularly quick, but there's no problem putting the scrub tyres on, the fuel going in, so this should well see him to the end of the race. It will. A very quick getaway for Jenson. Good stop, BAR.
And Michael Schumacher's got a problem. He's got some difficulty with the steering. Looks like the left rear corner, left rear puncture for Michael Schumacher in a weekend where everything seems to have gone wrong. Well, he races in the colour red. As I said, he was asked by a Chinese reporter whether he raced that because it was lucky. It's been so unlucky here for Michael Schumacher. Everything that could have happened to him this weekend has happened. He's now got a puncture, and the chance of scoring any points in the first ever Chinese Grand Prix have gone right out of the window for the 7 times world champion.
Well, the carcass is just about staying intact. Outboard, it doesn't do any damage. As long as it doesn't start damaging the suspension and the outboard section of the rear wing, then he'll get away with it. In the pit lane he goes. The cars don't want to slow down, even from slow speed, because that you've got the left rear is low, so the right front goes up in the air and just waves around effectively, and gives you very little stopping power. So Schumacher will have to coast into the pits very slowly, otherwise he'll go sailing straight through, and that's exactly what he does.
Well, he started this Grand Prix from the pit lane rather than his more customary pole position. He's back again a little more soon than he had anticipated after that puncture. Michael Schumacher having a miserable afternoon. Kimi Raikkonen has died. arrived into the pits from second place. He's making his third stop of the afternoon then. And crucially, of course, he's racing against Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello. Button on a different strategy from Raikkonen and Barrichello. And let's see where Raikkonen comes out.
Raikkonen came in at a slightly strange angle just to make it a touch more difficult. And there he goes. So, yes, he's ahead of him, isn't he? That's the Button. The bar of Button was behind him, I believe, coming down the pit straight. Just caught a mere glimpse of it. But Raikkonen, it seems.
I wonder whether it was Takuma Sato who was in fourth place before Raikkonen made that stop. It was a very high camera angle. Jenson Button, before Raikkonen came in, was only 14 seconds behind Martin, and that's not enough for Raikkonen to come in and get back out again. So I do wonder whether it's Takuma Sato that was behind Raikkonen, and that means that Button has leapfrogged Kimi Raikkonen by doing a two-stop plan. Can't tell you that at the moment until the TV cameras give us the confirmation. There is Rubens Barrichello, who's back in the lead of this Grand Prix in the Ferrari, but he has to make another pit stop at some point in the very near future. And if he comes out behind Jenson Button as well, with just under 20 laps of this Grand Prix still to go, when Barrichello makes his stop, Jenson Button could be sitting looking at his first ever Grand Prix victory. Dare we even begin to think about that? At the moment, there's a crucial moments for Rubens Barrichello. He's got to put the hammer down now to make sure that when he comes out after his final stop, he's in front of Button.
Right, he's got to pull those 32s out of the bag that he was doing earlier on. Minardi getting out of shape. I think that's up about turn 7 or 8. And Button then has come through in second place. So Jenson Button with all of his stops out of the way and looking very, very good. Barrichello leads at this time. Ralf Schumacher recovering first from a spin down at the hairpin.
Yep, there is Ralf Schumacher. Whoa! He's thought about going into the pits, changed his mind and changed his mind again. That's highly unconventional tactics there from Ralf Schumacher. That didn't look accidental to me. That looked like a sudden late change of mind. Lap 38. Seems to be a bit of a miscommunication here for Williams.
Stop totally. Whatever you want. Stop.
A classic error of communication. And Ralf Schumacher tries to park in the McLaren garage. It's total chaos. This is lap 38 of the Chinese Grand Prix. It's between Barrichello, Button and Raikkonen for who's going to win this race. Just 17 laps to go in the first ever Chinese Grand Prix at Shanghai. Across the pit stake goes the race leader, Rubens Barrichello, in front of 30,000 people in that massive grandstand who've come along to see what Formula One is all about, and they have seen a tremendous race. We're still not 100% sure who's going to win it, because Rubens Barrichello getting badly held up by the Renault. At the moment, he's 25 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. He still has to make another pit stop, though. It's going to be really nip and tuck between the two of them when Barrichello comes out. And here's an incident between Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher from a few moments ago.
Yes, DC really pushing his luck there. I think Ralf would have been busy watching the Renault, and Coulthard coming in quite late. That would have surprised Ralf. It broken Ralf's rear suspension, which is why we saw him squirreling all over the place before we went to the break. Coulthard then had a punctured left front, but damage limitation, I think he may have been due in. It let it go on the way into the hairpin just at the end of the lap. He was probably due in about then anyway for his final stop. So Coulthard then back in 9th place now. But what's really hurting Jenson Button is that stage again where he's very slow just after the pit stop, and it's about to cost him this Grand Prix because they've had the right tactics, they just haven't got the pace when they really need it.
Absolutely right. Jenson had a very slow lap on that last one, a 1:35.2 compared to Rubens Barrichello's 1:33.0. It means he's now 27 seconds behind Barrichello, and I think that Barrichello can quite comfortably now make his third and final stop of the afternoon and rejoin in front of Jenson Button. That's bad luck for Button then. The pace not quite there when he needed it, but still a lot can happen to Rubens Barrichello. He can still come up against traffic. Jenson can start to hit the sweet spot. We don't know how much further Rubens Barrichello has got to go. And we saw a wheel flying off there. That's one of the Minardis, either Bruni or Baumgartner, both still in the Grand Prix. It's Baumgartner, and is that going down the pit lane?
I don't think so. I think it's out the back, and there's I think it's the pit lane for the support racers. The left front obviously not gone on properly at a pit stop. You're not going to have one shearing off or anything like that, but you can. That demonstrates just how stiff the cars are in terms of their rigidity and the suspension. They will drive along on three wheels, but the front left underneath of the. Yeah, they're telling him to stay.
Not quite sure what that was. I don't think we'll translate that one, but they're telling him to stay off the racing line. And, well, that's pretty useful advice. I'm sure he feels a lot of frustration in that car because I don't know if he just made his third stop of the afternoon, but he has done 3 pit stops. His teammate's only done 2, so I wonder whether that was shortly after a Minardi pit stop. Don't know yet. Apologies to Ralf Schumacher. When we saw him earlier on, was suggesting that he was a bit confused about the pit lane. Of course, his suspension was broken. That's why he made that strange dive. As the race leader comes into the pits with a 28-second advantage over Jenson Button in second place. Ted Kravitz, can he win this race from here?
He certainly can. This one's going to be close, though, and Ferrari don't make mistakes. The wheels are on, the fuel is on. That's fine. It's a very quick stop. Rubens Barrichello away.
And possibly on his way to victory. There goes Michael Schumacher. We're normally talking about him in terms of victory. Came here this weekend looking for win number 13. And Jenson Button there at the top of your frames. And that's Heartbreak Hotel for Jenson. Just didn't have the speed after that second pit stop to overhaul Rubens Barrichello, having led for quite a bit of this Grand Prix, Jenson. But, well, second place is no bad thing. It would take BAR past the magic 100 mark in the championship. So Button is in second place. The crucial thing, though, for him is he managed to jump Kimi Raikkonen through the pit stop sequence. He is in second place. Raikkonen is third. Fisichella has pitted just now from 4th place, which means Alonso is up to 4th. There is Fisichella, with Massa also up there in 5th place at the moment, but yet to make his 3rd stop of the afternoon.
Just to explain that then, Jenson Button's 2 stopped compared to Barrichello and Raikkonen 3 stopping. It was looking very good for him, but he's gone out on fresh tyres with some fuel back on board to get him to the end of the Grand Prix, and he's had no raw pace. Barrichello's just out-sprinted him, really, and ended up back in front. So Barrichello leads then, Jenson Button 2nd, Kimi Raikkonen 3rd.
25 of the Chinese Grand Prix. We're riding on board with Jacques Villeneuve in the Renault on his return to Grand Prix racing after a year of watching it on television with you at home. He's finally back in the cockpit for the final 3 Grand Prix of the season as a prelude to 2 more years as a driver with the Sauber team, 2005 and 2006. Rubens Barrichello then is leading this Grand Prix from this man, Jenson Button, in second place. Rubens has 8 seconds in his pocket over Button, and that was all about the pace of his car versus the BAR at the crucial stages. Kimi Raikkonen is in third place, 6 seconds behind Button, and at the moment lapping at more or less the same sort of pace as the Englishman. So he's going to have to pull his finger out if he's going to take second place away from him. Which just took 6 seconds, took 6/10 out of him on that last lap. So he is pulling his finger out. It's down to 5.5 seconds. Alonso's 4th, 5th is Felipe Massa, and 6th is Juan Montoya.
Yeah, so Button caught Barrichello a bit, and Raikkonen caught the pair of them by best part of a second actually over Barrichello. Raikkonen on a charge now. I think he'd be surprised to find he was back in third place. Nice move by the BAR team, and McLaren looked like they had a great chance of a victory until Barrichello just popped in some quick lap times to show his real pace, and Button's leapfrogged them with a 2-stop strategy compared to the 3, but he's not got that second place yet. Kimi Raikkonen is on a charge.
No, he certainly hasn't. Felipe Massa, I was saying, would have to come in for another stop. He's just done that, and that's dropped him from 5th place down to 8th. So he does stay in the points, and he's crucially emerged in front of David Coulthard, who we saw having a front puncture just a couple of laps ago as a result of contact with Ralf Schumacher, contact that put Ralf Schumacher out of this Grand Prix. We've got 16 runners still going. We've seen Bruni retiring with a wheel flying off his car. Ralf Schumacher broke his suspension in that contact. Ricardo Zonta has retired, and also Christian Klien, who was hit by Michael Schumacher earlier in the Grand Prix, and he too took his car too damaged to continue. On board with Michael Schumacher, lying in 12th place. Been an eventful afternoon for the world champion. He's now once again stuck behind Jacques Villeneuve.
So Michael, 2 seconds behind, 2 seconds. Very good improvement through the high speed that lap, very good.
Just giving Jacques some feedback on his previous lap, and to tell him that Michael Schumacher's bearing down on him. They seem to have been running line astern for quite some time now. They're 80 seconds away from the leader. Michael Schumacher's been backwards down the main straight, spinning off in the final corner onto that straight. The corner, the right-hander just coming up. He's had a puncture. He's been in all sorts of trouble, had contact with Klien, started from the pit lane. I'm rather impressed he didn't park it actually at the end of his lap when he had the puncture. Would have been very tempting, I'd imagine, after the afternoon he's had. Does he have a chance? He's had so much straight line speed this afternoon. I half expect him to be up alongside Villeneuve. He's going to pull out at the last moment, but he's too late to do anything about it. But that's a good scrap between a former world champion and the current world champion, but amazingly, just for 11th and 12th places. Barrichello leads Button by 7.5 seconds. Raikkonen is 5.8 behind now, behind Button that is. Button's responded with a bit more pace.
Well, Villeneuve had a spin in this corner just a couple of laps ago, a half spin. He didn't really leave the racetrack particularly, but it was reminiscent of what happened to Michael Schumacher yesterday in qualifying, and that's what's brought him back into the clutches of Schumacher, who himself has lost time this afternoon by having a puncture, by contact with Christian Klien, and well, starting the race from the pit lane in the first place. It's not been a memorable Chinese Grand Prix for Michael Schumacher, who has to look back in the calendar as far as Hungary 3 races ago, the last time he won a Grand Prix. So since very much since Hungary, a bit off colour for Michael Schumacher.
Yes, if Barrichello wins this Grand Prix, it confirms him comfortably in second place, then gets his second place in the championship fixed. And remember just how brilliant Rubens Barrichello was in Japan last year, which is our next venue we're moving on to. But of course also BAR looking very strong this afternoon. They've got Button second and Sato quietly from the back of the grid now up to 6th, with only Alonso in the points for Renault in 4th. So looking very good for BAR, and second place in the constructors as Michael Schumacher does pick up the toe halfway down the straight. That should now be a clean pass, although Villeneuve's going to make him work as hard as he can for it, but Michael had that completely covered. Barrichello leads by 6.7 seconds from Jenson Button. Raikkonen 5.4 behind in third, as Michael Schumacher pits yet again. That'll be number 4 this afternoon then, and it's really all falling apart, isn't it? You wonder what's going to happen next to him. Completely out of sync.
This is the splash and dash we mentioned before. There's the splash, here comes the dash, but it's a bit of a pointless one for Michael Schumacher. He might even find himself being lapped by Rubens Barrichello here this afternoon if he's not very careful indeed. Out he goes into the sunshine. Rubens Barrichello heading for the checkered flag. Just 8 to go here between him and victory in the first ever Chinese Grand Prix.
Get him!
Lap 51 of the 56-lap Chinese Grand Prix at Shanghai. Jacques Villeneuve there, you can see bearing down on Mark Webber in the battle for 10th place. Villeneuve in the Renault, Webber in the Jaguar. It's been a really exciting afternoon's racing here in Shanghai. From the start, Rubens Barrichello led from Kimi Raikkonen. Jenson Button third on the grid, but was 5th into the first corner. Eventually managed to get himself back up into 3rd place. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher, the world champion, having made a mess of qualifying yesterday, decided to start the race from the pit lane with a very heavy fuel load. Took him a long time to get up to speed, but in an early middle part of the race, he was the fastest man on the track. Absolutely mesmerizing pace. But then he hit Christian Klien in the Jaguar, which forced Christian out of the race. He then had a spin, and well, he had a puncture as well. So Schumacher has been lapped by his teammate Rubens Barrichello, who's leading this Grand Prix. Crucially this afternoon, it was about different strategies. Michael Schumacher did a very different strategy from everyone else, but Barrichello and Raikkonen were on 3-stop strategies. Jenson Button fooled us for a little while, but certainly he changed his plan, was on a 2-stop strategy here this afternoon. It looked like it might work for him, even to pinch the victory off Rubens Barrichello, but he just didn't quite have enough pace after his pit stops, Jenson Button, to do the Ferrari, and when Barrichello made his 3rd stop, he emerged comfortably in front of the BAR. You can see the margin between them, but what the strategy did do for Jenson Button is it got him in front of Kimi Raikkonen, and he'll be very, very happy about that.
Yeah, but Raikkonen now is just 2.5 seconds adrift and closing fast. Jenson's about to have his mirrors full of McLaren. Ted has some news for us.
Absolutely, they're very worried at the BAR pit wall because they know what you know, Martin. Kimi Raikkonen is taking 7/10 a lap out of Jenson Button. If Jenson doesn't step on it, Raikkonen's going to be on the back of him like Stinkoff on a monkey, really. He's just got to get on with it, and I'm not sure if the BAR's got the pace.
But it's not that Jenson's slow, he's in the 133s. It's just that Raikkonen is incredibly fast. Just throwing caution to the wind, I think. Giving everything, nothing to lose. I mean, Raikkonen is going to be thoroughly disappointed with 3rd place this afternoon. He was shadowing Barrichello, wasn't he? All the way through the first half of the race. Looked like he really was a contender. Suddenly, he's on the bottom step of the podium. Let's have a look at this lap. He was 3/10 faster than Jenson in the 1st sector, 1/10 faster in the 2nd sector, so 4/10 up then. Villeneuve still trying to pass Mark Webber for 10th and 11th. There's the leader then, cruising up to lap those two. Barrichello, 2nd place man Button. There then is Raikkonen.
1, 2 and 3 separated by just 6 seconds then after 52 laps of racing. It has been competitive here this weekend in Shanghai. Michael Schumacher put himself out of contention yesterday in qualifying, but we had 6 different makes of cars in the first 6 slots on the grid. We've had terrific racing around this new racetrack, and the top 3 are still very, very close together, and it's been tremendous. So for once, the superstar relegates themselves to the sidelines, and the understudies take centre stage. Barrichello, Button and Raikkonen, 3 very feisty racers, 1, 2 and 3. Here's another feisty racer, Jacques Villeneuve. He's been encouraged over the radio by Alan Permain, his race engineer, to step on it and get past Mark Webber, but this tough, gritty Australian proving a little bit more difficult to pass than Villeneuve and his team anticipated.
It'll be interesting to see how close Barrichello is to coming up to lap these. Barrichello's got Button closing in on him, and they're all lapping about 2 seconds faster than that scrap between Webber and Villeneuve. They'll be very busy minding their own business, but I think they've probably just got enough space, actually. And there's the scrap at the front, Barrichello in the background. They may just come into play on the final lap of this Grand Prix. Jenson Button does not need traffic to pass. Raikkonen bearing down on him. Another 2/10 already on this lap.
Yeah, half a second off in the last lap, 2/10 already on this lap. We're focusing at the moment on this scrap between Villeneuve and Webber for 10th place as they go under this magnificent grandstand and bridge complex for the 53rd time. And Rubens Barrichello, Button has crossed the line, and Raikkonen has crossed the line as well. He's set his fastest lap of the race so far, and he is now just 1.5 seconds behind Jenson Button with only 3 laps to go here. It's going to be literally a grandstand finish for the 150,000 people that have packed into this track. Button under real pressure now from Raikkonen. Don't you just love Kimi Raikkonen? He's such a fighter. He doesn't care. He goes for it all the time, and he's giving some real pressure to Button.
Raikkonen 3/10 up on Button in the 1st sector alone now. Just 4.9 seconds separating the top 3. We're looking at the wrong fight, Mr. Director. As interesting as it is, Villeneuve not looking like he's going to clear Webber anytime soon. There it goes, Barrichello behind him. And where was Jenson Button? We didn't see him flash into view, surprisingly. It was 3 seconds adrift, and we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, it's Raikkonen a full 6/10 up, halfway around this lap.
Yep, he's already got the margin down to under a second then. As you can see, Barrichello at the top. Where's Raikkonen? There's Button. There's Button. There's Raikkonen. The gap is now under a second between 2nd place and 3rd place. At the end of this lap, there'll be just 2 to go. Well, this victory, if it comes for Rubens Barrichello, will confirm him in second in the World Championship. And if Button can stay where he is, that will be third for him. But Raikkonen sliding the car, getting the back end out, chasing after Jenson Button in second place. Hunting may have been banned in Great Britain, but hunting Button has not been banned for Kimi Raikkonen. He's really got a sniff of this.
It's a lot to do, though. Catching is one thing, passing is quite another, as you will have heard 1,000 times. But certainly he's hanging out, isn't he? A 32.8, then a 32.9, 1 minute 32.9 for Kimi Raikkonen, and that's wise, just to say. But it's not Button slow at all. Button's putting some very nice laps together. Barrichello is just pacing himself out front. He's not under threat. It's Jenson Button that'll be rather nervously checking his mirrors. But they're even Stevens at the end of the first sector. That's how it looks on the track too, isn't it?
Yeah, we saw Raikkonen sliding the back of the car at the end of that last lap. At the moment, Button is pushing hard. Raikkonen can see him. He's just looking for mistakes, trying to make him make a mistake, trying to get closer to him to force him into some sort of difficulty. You can see he just can't quite get there at the moment because Button is responding magnificently to this challenge from Kimi Raikkonen. And I said yesterday and again today, there's been nothing to choose between these two men all weekend for pace. Their grid slots were decided by a matter of hundredths of a second. All through practice, they've been right together for best of the rest behind the Ferrari. And, well, today, they're not that far behind the Ferrari, are they? And not much to choose between them once again. And Barrichello a little bit held up there by Villeneuve.
It's not a problem, but will Villeneuve come into play for Button? And the BAR, of course, which no love lost there between Villeneuve and the BAR team. And there we go then. I think with 1 lap to go, should just about be okay. But Button and just 0.8 ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen will be right behind him at the end of this lap.
Yes, an interesting situation for Villeneuve. He is a back marker. He will have to get out of the way or be heavily penalised. He's also a professional racing driver and he knows he has to get out of the way. But let's remind ourselves, he is here with his goal for the Renault team to try and get them in front of BAR in the Constructors' Championship in the last 3 Grand Prix. Any help he can give to slow Jenson Button down and spoil his afternoon, I'm sure he'd like to, but as a back marker, it's a big call.
Yeah, he's a total pro. Jacques just will not get involved in that sort of thing. I'm pretty sure of that. But Jenson's got to catch him first. But it could well happen towards the end of the lap. There's Rubens then, free and clear. Villeneuve between them. Villeneuve getting a touch wide there, giving Button a face full of dust that he really doesn't need at this stage.
This is the last lap of the Chinese Grand Prix. We were on tenterhooks at the start. We're on tenterhooks at the finish. It could well come down to that long back straight. We're on it now. It could well come down to Kimi Raikkonen making a desperate lunge down the inside of Jenson Button. Can he get close enough? The Honda horsepower pushing that BAR down the straight. There's no toe for Raikkonen. It doesn't look like he's going to get close enough to have a try. Button, it looks as though he's going to stay safely in second place. Villeneuve gets well and truly out of the way. Webber gets out of Rubens Barrichello's way. And Rubens Barrichello comes through to cross the start-finish line and win the first ever Chinese Grand Prix with almost a photo finish between Button and Raikkonen for second. Tremendous race. Ross Brawn there, congratulated by Luca Di Montezemolo. That is Jenson Button's father, John. Tears in his eyes. He's been squeezing the counter hard. And just for good measure, Michael Schumacher, never a contender in this Grand Prix, sets the fastest lap of the race right at the very end, 1:32.2. He may not be the daddy today, but he's just reminding everyone of what they can expect at Suzuka in a couple of weeks.
Incredible pace. And this is Coulthard then. They're still racing, of course, those that haven't crossed the line or haven't been lapped. So Massa and Coulthard, this is for the final World Championship point. And that Sauber's been very good off that final corner, hasn't it? When they've been hooked up with their tyres. So Rubens is celebrating, and DC not quite close enough to try and snatch that position into the hairpin, and there's really nowhere to go in the final corner. So a World Championship point then for Massa. Fisichella's 7th, and the other Sauber just ahead of them.
Across the line they go. Felipe Massa started 4th on the grid, finishes 8th in the points this afternoon, behind teammate Fisichella. Once again, the experience counting for Fisichella, who started 7th on the grid. David Richards has presided over yet another podium finish, number 9 this season for Jenson Button. He is talking now with Louise Goodman.
So close at the finish.